In its early days, the Weimar Republic faced an awful lot of threats. Germany had been used to the leadership of the Kaiser, and now it was getting used to this idea of democracy. They would face challenges from across the political spectrum. People were unhappy with their government and their politicians, especially after the Treaty of Versailles. As well as that, there was the fact that only just a couple of years before, Russia had seen the loss of its monarchy with the Tsar and a replacement with the Bolshevik Revolution, a communist revolution that took over and placed Lenin in charge of Russia. People were fearful that the same thing would happen in Germany. So we can remember the kind of key things about this time period by using the acronym ASK to remember the different parts of why the government faced this challenge. The A of ASK is assassinations. There were an awful lot of people who were murdered and assassinated during these early days of the Weimar Republic. In particular, two key politicians to remember: Matthias Erzberger, he was a leader of a centre party. He was a guy who signed the Treaty of Versailles. He was assassinated. And Walter Rathenau was a foreign minister, and he was assassinated as well in 1922. The next step in the little acronym is the S, the Spartacists. Now, the Spartacists were a group of people who the Spartacist League, as they were referred to. They had communist ideals, and they were led by two key people, Karl Liebknecht and Rosa Luxemburg. They wanted to overthrow the Weimar government and establish start a communist state in Germany. January 1919 was referred to as the Spartacist Uprising. They attempted to overthrow the government. However, Ebert used the army and the Free Corps to crush the Spartacist revolution, and in the end, both Liebknecht and Luxemburg were captured and they were killed. This violence was the main reason why the Weimar government ended up moving its assembly to the small village of Weimar, because of the violence happening in Berlin. Last thing within our acronym of ASK is the Kapp Putsch. Now, the Kapp Putsch was a challenge to the government from the right wing of the political spectrum. This was a case of the right-wing politician Wolfgang Kapp actually planning to form a new right-wing government. He was quite successful. In the end, he seized Berlin on the 13th of March 1920, and the Weimar government had to move again. Kapp had used the idea of the Dolchstoss and also of the communist threat to really gain support. However, when trade unionists and civil servants ended up mainly supporting the Weimar government, the Kapp Putsch ended up collapsing. Now, obviously, one last threat came in November 1923 when Hitler attempted the Munich Putsch, but we'll talk about that in a separate video.